All right, let's dive straight into this critical Code Ninja security advisory. Fellow defenders, we are looking at a massive, highly critical threat right now. It's the ConnectWise ScreenConnect exploit chain, which the community is calling SlashAndGrab. As a white hat researcher, my absolute objective with this intelligence brief is to dissect this vulnerability so we can force immediate vendor patches and lock down our perimeters. We are facing a truly catastrophic scenario here. We're talking about an embarrassingly easy exploit chain that literally grants attackers a god mode over entire managed infrastructures. And because ScreenConnect operates with system privileges and has total administrative control over all those downstream client endpoints, well, this single vulnerability has the potential to trigger a global mass ransomware event affecting thousands of endpoints. So let's break down the intelligence.
Check out this timeline. It really shows you the rapid escalation from the initial zero-day disclosure to active weaponization in the wild. It's literally a race against the clock. On February 19th, ConnectWise disclosed the flaws and dropped patch 23.9.8. Now, cloud instances got patched automatically, but self-hosted, on-premise admins, they were left scrambling. By the very next day, February 20th, security firms like Huntress and Arctic Wolf were already seeing active exploitation. Threat actors rapidly reverse-engineered the patch delta and weaponized it. By the 21st, trivial proof-of-concept exploits were out in the public, and the CVEs were officially assigned. And looking down the road, CISA has slapped this onto their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog with a hard mitigation deadline of May 12, 2026 for federal entities. The entire point of this explainer is to arm you with the technical mechanics of this exact timeline so you can execute immediate mitigation tactics.
Okay, before we dissect the actual mechanics of the exploit, we need to pause for a quick communication link setup. I need to gauge the state of our network defenders right now. Drop a comment below with your current status. Are you patched or are you vulnerable? We know from shadow server telemetry that a massive chunk of ScreenConnect servers were just sitting out there, totally exposed to the public internet right after the disclosure. By logging your status down in the comments, you're actually helping us accurately map the blast radius of this threat across the community.
To maintain a secure and informed perimeter, I need you to execute this tactical comms check. First, hit subscribe on @cybertech79 right now. Treat this as a strict security necessity for real-time intelligence drops. You're going to want to enable your notifications too, so you do not miss critical zero-day alerts. Next, hit the like button on this explainer. I am treating that like as a formal ACK, an acknowledgement of receipt, confirming you've received this intel and are actively processing it. And like I just mentioned, drop your environment's patch status in the comments to help with our ongoing threat census.
So let's define the massive blast radius of the primary vulnerability here, which is CVE 2024-1709. This is an authentication bypass that uses an alternate path or channel, and it clocks in with a maximum CVSS-based score of 10 out of 10. A perfect 10 is never a good thing for defenders. It's a critical network-based attack vector that requires absolutely zero privileges and zero user interaction. By exploiting this, an unauthenticated attacker instantly gains administrative access over your ScreenConnect instances. And because ScreenConnect is a remote monitoring and management tool, this God mode access just cascades downwards, putting every single downstream client in your managed infrastructure at massive risk. The threat landscape shifted violently within just 24 hours of the disclosure, and for one very simple reason. Huntress researchers reversed the patch and literally concluded that the exploit is, quote, trivial and embarrassingly easy. Because this attack requires no advanced coding whatsoever, it's literally just a slightly modified URL, it was rapidly snatched up by everybody, from low sophistication attackers to advanced persistent threats. Ransomware cartels like Lockbit, Blackbosta, and Play immediately folded this into their operations to deploy encryptors against exposed perimeters.
Let's break down how the exploit actually works under the hood. Prior to version 23.9.8, the ScreenConnect code simply checked if an incoming request path exactly matched /SetupWizard.aspx. If it did, it blocked access to already configured systems. Makes sense, right? However, an attacker can simply target that vulnerable URL and append arbitrary text to the end of it, like /SetupWizard.aspx/ literally anything. Because the .NET framework handles URL path components in a really strange way, it incorrectly passes the request right through, completely bypassing that strict string comparison. The attacker is then allowed to execute the setup wizard on your live production instance. And all they have to do is click Next in this wizard to completely overwrite your internal user XML database, wiping out legitimate local users and setting up their own rogue administrative account.
But the attack chain doesn't stop there. Enter the second vulnerability, CVE 2024-1708. This one is a high-severity CVSS 8.4 zip-slip path traversal flaw. Think of it this way. If the first vulnerability unlocked the front door, the second flaw acts as the payload delivery system once the attacker is inside with administrative access. Using their newly minted admin credentials, the threat actor jumps into the ScreenConnect extensions menu to upload a poisoned payload, which triggers the path traversal.
The mechanics of this compromise are pretty straightforward when you look at the extraction process side by side. Normally, when you upload an extension, the server is supposed to extract the contents strictly into a safe, designated subdirectory. But vulnerable versions of ScreenConnect completely fail to validate the file names within the zip archive. So this zip-slip attack uses .. traversal sequences to literally escape those intended directories. The unpatched server blindly follows those instructions, allowing the attacker to drop remote access Trojans, Cobalt strike beacons, or malicious ASPX web shells directly into the application's root directory, and that gives them full system-level control.
Okay, so how do you actually hunt for this on your network? Because standard sysmon logs will often completely miss this .NET application activity, you have to look for these specific indicators of compromise. First up, check for any unauthorized modifications to your user.xml file in the ScreenConnect temp directory. If you see changes there, it's a huge red flag indicating a rogue admin account creation. Second, scan the root folder of your app_extensions directory. Legitimate extensions live in their own subdirectories, so any orphaned .aspx or .asx executables just sitting directly in the root, those are highly likely to be deployed web shells. Finally, pull your IIS web server logs and analyze them for any GET requests to /SetupWizard.aspx/ followed by trailing characters. That is the definitive fingerprint of the initial authentication bypass.
All right, here is your critical patch directive and actionable mitigation protocol. First things first, upgrade all on-premise servers to version 23.9.8 or higher immediately. ConnectWise actually removed license restrictions so all users can do this. But please hear me clearly on this next point. If you inspect your directories and find that you are already breached, patching alone will not remove the backdoor. Patching does not magically revert a hijacked user database. If you are compromised, you have to take the server offline entirely and rebuild it from known clean backups. Moving forward, heavily restrict your ScreenConnect administrative interfaces behind a VPN or strict IP allow lists.
Here at Code Ninja, we strictly adhere to the ethics of coordinated vulnerability disclosure. Look, once an exploit is actively weaponized and proof of concepts are out in the wild, obscurity is no longer security. We provide this level of deep technical analysis because as network defenders, you fundamentally need to know exactly how these exploits function. You need to know how the URL is manipulated and how that zip slip executes so you can effectively hunt for those indicators of compromise and lock down your systems. Defenders simply cannot protect a perimeter they do not understand.
As we wrap up this intelligence brief, I want to leave you with this final, critical question about the true resilience of your infrastructure. If a fundamentally trivial URL modification can completely bypass your authentication and hand over the keys to your entire client network, what other unseen vulnerabilities are silently weaponizing your supply chain right now? Remote monitoring and management tools are incredibly powerful assets, but they are a massive double-edged sword that require extreme, constant vigilance.
So acknowledge this intel, implement the mitigation protocol right now. Hunt through your logs, and above all else, stay secure.